Thank you for taking the time out of your day and investing in this webinar. We very much appreciate it, and I promise that we have spent as much time as humanly possible in making this as informative and engaging as we possibly can. Before we jump into our session, I would like to take the chance time to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, sea, culture and community in which we meet. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And before I introduce my co-speakers for today, who are very excited to be joining us, for those of you that have not worked with us before, I represent Barhead Solutions. We are a technology consultancy practice specialising in Microsoft technology. We take care of end-to-end implementation from ideation, delivery, enablement, adoption. Essentially, our objective is to make sure that you are getting the most out of your investments in the Microsoft stack. We do have a financial services pod that specialises in implementation across banking, insurance, super, but we're very fortunate to be strengthened by partners like Finura, who most of you on the call will be well aware possess very deep domain expertise within financial planning and super sub-vertical, which is a fantastic segue into introducing our two co-speakers for today, Mr. Peter Warne, who requires no introduction, but let's go ahead and do one anyway. Co-founder and joint managing director of Finura Group. Pete is extremely well-travelled, well-versed in all things fintech, particularly as it relates to financial planning and wealth management. He holds several board positions and his team advise lots of financial services companies across Australia and the UK. And above all else, he's just a pretty good bloke. So Pete, very excited to have you along today. And also joining us is Kostin Solikov, affectionately known as Costa. Costa is a business application specialist for financial services in Microsoft Australia. Of the three of us, I think he probably is the most well-travelled. So he boasts an incredibly excellent resume across the Asia Pacific region in implementing multi-stream digital transformation programs. So Costa, very excited to have you joining with us today as well, and looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us about the Microsoft roadmap and investment. So before we get into today's agenda, I will very briefly talk to you about the drivers behind this webinar series. This is only part one, as I've kind of laboured for the first 3 minutes of this presentation, but the reason behind this series came about in a conversation that we had with Pete and his team over the past few months. And that is essentially that it is incredibly difficult for the people on this call to find the time and make sense of all the noise surrounding technology at the moment. So the pace of technology, the introduction of buzzwords, generative AI, large language models, insert other buzzword here, has led to a proliferation of vendors who I'm imagining are reaching out. If your Outlook or inbox looks anything like mine, reaching out for demos here, there and everywhere. And it's incredibly difficult in managing every other macro trend at the moment, QAR, interest rates, geopolitical issues, et cetera, to actually find the time to wade through that noise. So this webinar series is, as I said, monthly. We want to make this iterative and for the content to be driven by you. So we are extremely interested as this series continues to evolve in hearing from you so that we can continue to learn together and evolve as the technology advances. So today's agenda, I think we've got a really good balance of show and tell. We do have a lot to cover, so I'm very conscious of that, and you'll have to be patient with us, guys. This is the first session, but we've got Pete talking us through some macro trends that are impacting everyone on this call and how to stay on the right side of those trends. Then I'll take the reins and talk through and show some visual examples of how Microsoft is enabling simplicity within technology with things like Copilot and generative AI. And then, Costa is going to round out the conversation with Microsoft investment and roadmap. So with that, I will hand over reins to the great Peter Warne.
Thanks, James, and thanks to Barhead and Microsoft for inviting us along to chat today. There's a lot of big industries in our world, and we think financial services, wealth management's a really important one. It's our universe, but I guess the challenge for a company like Microsoft and its partners is that it's literally serving every possible industry you can think of, and so it's great that we are have partners like Barhead and Microsoft who are really keen to support wealth management and work with this sector. So thanks again for the guys for putting this on. As James alluded to, a lot of people on this call would know Finura. I'm delighted to see some of our clients actually dial into this, which is awesome, because we encourage curiosity from our clients and getting to know these things. But our team, we spend a lot of time working with independent financial advice businesses, and quite often some quite large businesses, including super funds, who are frankly grappling with all those issues that James spoke about. And what's really changed, obviously, in the last couple of years, is that we've just had this amazing pace of innovation thrust upon us in terms of our software solutions are frankly becoming amazing and doing things that we never thought possible. And it still continues to surprise us a little bit, though, that many, particularly clients, when we first engage with them, they just simply don't understand the breadth of capability that they've got in the existing solutions that they use. That can be rudimentary systems like Xplan, which is used by a lot of people specific to this sector, but it definitely applies to the Microsoft stack. And that's fair enough, because you're running your businesses. Most financial planning business owners are head of HR, head of advice, head of finance, and frankly, when you're running a small business, it's really hard to be across all these things. So obviously, while we were keen to support this, was to try and find ways to put together bite-sized pieces of content that can help steer you in the right direction about some things to learn. But we believe there will have to be a shift in thinking about how businesses view technology in the future, and that's one of the reasons why we started Finura in the first place. When we started the company, we sort of started on the back of, started during the COVID pandemic, and what we saw with COVID was just a massive inundation of new technology into our sector. Some of it good, some of it not so good, but that's what happens when you have a flood of venture capital money into an ecosystem, is you have a lot of startups. And what we were coming across quite frequently was, rather than businesses having tech stacks, we sort of refer to them more as, Danny and our team refers to them as tech piles, of just a bunch of technology, poorly integrated, if at all integrated, and no one could really tell you what it was, why it was purchased, what it does, what's its role in the business. And I think that trend is over, for two reasons. One is a lot of those startups just don't exist anymore. But the other reason is that businesses are sort of coming to the conclusion that you just can't be across a dozen different systems. It's just not possible. And particularly in a small business, really difficult. So we're loving the fact that a lot of clients coming to us, and certainly our clients, we hope, are saying, hey, can you just simplify everything? We're not, when you boil it down, our business is not that complex. We find a way to make it complex. So therefore, our technology should reflect that. And what we are preaching to the market is sweating the assets you have, sweating the technologies that you already use, because there's a good bet you're only using a small capability of it. Where we do see a challenge for our sector is that typically when we work with clients, we look at what's the average spend across the technology stack that IFAs are making, and we are underdone as a collective industry of how much we will spend on technology relative to our peers in other markets. So this is some data from Business Health and some of their peers in the US, which track technology spend. The two key components to technology spend, which are not well understood. Number one is the software, which we all, pay, and no doubt have noticed our software costs are going up quite a pace at the moment with inflation. But the other component, which is not well understood or considered when starting financial planning businesses, is that you have to spend money on the technology itself. You've got to spend time on training, learning it, configuring it, and ongoing investment in making it better and better. It's not just something you necessarily buy off the shelf and it continues to work for you. And that's what we believe, that collective uplift of technology spend has to change for businesses to maximise their output. Why is this super important? Simple macro factors. So in my 22 years in the industry, I think this is more likely the first sustained inflationary environment that we're going to be in from a business point of view, which you are all no doubt feeling. We feel it, where it's not just now our software costs and power costs going up, but wage pressure is a real thing, and your employees are no doubt proactively coming to you looking for at least CPI increases, and that's putting pressures on professional services businesses like financial advice firms. The challenge is our businesses are not infinitely scalable. Most professional services businesses like advice generally grow at about 10 to 15% revenue, and that's a good year. And we would also note that clients aren't exactly willing to or able to absorb big fee increases at the moment either. So you have all these pressures growing on small business. So what we're really seeing is that businesses are now sort of saying, well, if I can't just throw more people at my business to make things to grow it, I'm going to have to spend more on technology to be an enabler. And the best part about that is that technology has never been better. Those opportunities are really there now to do that. And this is where some sensible investment in technology capability is going to be important for your P&L for at least the next 3 years, we believe. This is by no means an exhaustive list of sort of industry-specific technology, but advice tech has historically been quite crowded. But despite all these players that exist in the ecosystem, there is really just been a couple of really dominant ones over the last sort of 10 years, really. So we still see an industry that's largely dominated by RSX plans. So about 80% of our clients will use RSX plan software. I'll talk more about those in a moment. And we've seen other solutions sort of come in and out to tackle key jobs to be done, depending on sort of the environment and what that solution was trying to do. The challenge has been that, and frankly, some of the major players have been culpable for this, but we haven't, unlike other sectors, we haven't really run with an integration first policy. Many providers of technology in this space, they sort of don't just want to dominate one job to be done, they want to dominate the entire thing, and it's made them less willing to integrate with other parties, or it's been a bit ad hoc. We are expecting and starting to see good signs already that as the voice of the IFA becomes more and more relevant in the future, that integration capability is more table stakes for software providers now. But at the same time, we would certainly believe that there is a lot of benefit of using as few systems as possible to do as many jobs as possible, rather than just throwing tech at the problem across the board. What are we seeing more broadly across the sector? So we are still seeing businesses that are specialist financial advice businesses, typically smaller businesses. So when I say smaller, probably under 20 staff, who are really sticking to the core fit for purpose financial planning systems that are out there. There's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, cost is one of them. Often just people and capability. We often forget that the entire industry, literally thousands of paraplanners, all they really know is Xplan. So to try and just put in new technology and expect people to be able to use it overnight, it's just not a realistic proposition at the moment. And we've got for 12,000 advisors, frankly, we've got a fair amount of tech in the specialist CRM space that does what it does from a specialist advice generation perspective. However, over the last sort of 4 years, we have seen larger practices. So practices are sort of 10 advisors plus, practices that are multidisciplinary. So they do accounting, lending, financial planning, and maybe other things, looking to use more enterprise type CRMs like Microsoft Dynamics, like Salesforce, to sort of meet that customer relationship manager job that has to be done. That is not necessarily an easy journey. So Dynamics, Salesforce, they don't come out of the box ready to go for a financial planning business to use. They either need to be configured, or you need to work with a specialist configuration partner to make them work for your particular use case. They also don't do everything. They rarely don't do advice generation, or they often have gaps in their offer. So it's not as simple as just pulling one thing out and putting another thing in with these tech infrastructures. And in addition to that, you need to work with a partner generally who really knows what they're doing around configuring these solutions. These are big industrial strength CRMs that are used by organizations with hundreds of thousands of employees, millions and millions of customers. So if you're looking to deploy them into a small business, it requires some real thought as to how you're going to use those. That said, the trend is still there, and the reality is that the power of these enterprise-grade CRMs, particularly like what Microsoft offer and also Salesforce to an extent, will always will outpace anything that's offered for an industry-specific vertical like an X-Plan, for example. The numbers speak for themselves. You're talking about a trillion dollar company in Microsoft here that's just got an R&D capability that will never be matched by an industry vertical. So we just educate our clients on having reasonable expectations about what you're going to get from an industry-specific thing. What I would say, though, if you're going to look at these more enterprise-grade CRMs, there is a considerable investment, not just in the software costs, but in the configuration and making it really work for you as well. I made my point at the start. We are underutilizing our software significantly across this industry. So an observation that Finura has made in pretty much every technology roadmap project we've done with clients is they are massively underutilizing their Microsoft stack. Businesses are paying for a lot of things they're not using. It is the best bang for buck, frankly. Microsoft 365 is the best bang for buck software you can frankly find in the market for there. But again, requires training, requires thoughtful usage, embedding in processes, and understanding where you're going to touch on those ecosystems. We're going to pick on Teams a bit today, I think, because it still staggers us that we get businesses coming to us saying, hey, we're thinking of doing a pilot with this new startup. They use all this AI and it transcripts things and it's really great. And we always say, gee, Teams does that. Do you know that? And people go, oh, no, I didn't know that. It's just a knowledge piece that we're getting. And so we, again, sweating the assets we see as a really important piece. And we see that Microsoft ecosystem as a prime example of why that needs to change. Sorry, just lost control here. There we go. Final point just on AI, because it's just every presentation that comes up, but we are quite prepared to say that we do believe Copilot, which is rolling out to Microsoft users at the moment, it's a generational change. It will change not only how we use software, but it'll also change the skill sets that we require in our businesses to operate that we haven't probably seen since email first came about. So, and we are literally, day one in a decade journey, I suppose, when it comes to this capability. But we need to think really carefully about how we're going to use AI in the future for our business. And one of the wonderful things about in a business like ours is that we are literally learning with our clients as we go, because the folks at particularly at OpenAI are literally surprising us every day with what's coming out and what's new. So keeping up is really hard. And that's why we need to work with partners like Microsoft to help us do that. But the people capability side, it doesn't get spoken about, and we are absolutely thinking about this for the future. We do believe that the roles that traditionally exist in financial planning business at the moment are going to change dramatically. We still think financial planning businesses still have the same number of people in them as they scale, but the types of skill sets they're going to need and different critical elements of the business are going to change, because the way clients engage with us is really going to change with technology. Because not only do we have a shift in technology with AI, we're also going through a generational shift with the types of clients we engage who are more and more comfortable with technology and have higher expectations of the digital experience. So there's just a few things which we might pick up in future webinars. But I think, that the interest in this topic obviously speaks for itself. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to reskill. So I'll hand back to you. Thanks, James.
Thanks very much, Pete. A few new phrases there for the personal glossary. I like tech piles. I think we'll be covering how to resolve some of that or the challenges that are faced with the concept of a tech pile rather than a tech stack. But three of the key challenges that I kind of distilled when looking through your slides, Pete, and in the conversations that we've had is number one, that as you said, with a poorly integrated and crowded ecosystem, it is very rare to see any practice have the same starting point. So it's difficult for IFAs to leverage an industry playbook of sorts. So to cover that today, we want to focus, as you said, on making your assets sweat or sweating the assets you have. And we're taking the bold assumption that most of the people on this call are using Microsoft Outlook and Teams. So the second challenge I heard is that integrations and solutions are complex. So well done on spreading the good word that, integrations are complex, but they are expensive to maintain. And that's something that's not to be taken granted. So we're going to look through what Sales Copilot does and how it can access different data sources today. And the third challenge I heard, which was touched on almost in your last slide, was just the manual and costly processes that result. and that will continue to result until we can try to find stronger and better ways around that scalable solution like technology. So what I'm hoping that we all leave today's call with is that there's a mutual understanding or agreement that there are quick wins within reach, regardless of your current technology pile, to prompt thinking of longer term transformation, which well done to you guys. First step is actually attending this call. So I think that is already on everybody's mindset here. But then thirdly, agree that any time invested in understanding the Microsoft ecosystem is a time well spent. And of all the vendors that are out there selling products, if we can call them that at this stage, some of it is literally just vaporware. But Microsoft, as Pete was saying, does have the R&D budget to compete and to make continued improvements, which Costa will tell us more about. Okay, so I'm going to take a massive risk and try to simplify a very what could be quite a complex problem or solution by defining what Copilot actually is. So Copilot is an AI capability that is woven across many different products in the Microsoft suite. So it is the term given to a generative AI capability within Microsoft. So as I play this video, you're going to see that it consists of what is known as a large language model. Very aware that the maturity across this audience will vary greatly. So I've tried to use an analogy to break down what a large language model actually is, just in case anyone is interested. First analogy I've heard is that imagine you have an extremely smart librarian that has trained for years at interpreting client activity, sentiment, actions, etc. And that librarian temporarily has access to customer data within your tenant and ecosystem. So all of the activity, events, emails within Microsoft 365 and Office, so proposals, pitch decks, etc. So we are now enabling or switching on an interface that allows us to communicate with that librarian, that virtual librarian, who is trained in understanding client information and activity and has access temporarily to our client data. So Sales Copilot obviously sounds a lot sexier because of the Top Gun connotation, but I think librarian is a better summation. And you can also connect your CRM data. So that's limited to, at this stage, Dynamics 365 and Salesforce out of the box, as Pete said, so with very little integration work. You can actually connect Sales Copilot to those two CRMs at present. So kudos to anyone on the call that is already with Salesforce or Dynamics. But you can also connect to external data sources using what we call Power Platform connectors, which is again, I promise that I won't go too technical, but it's low code, no code way of training Sales Copilot. So we can talk about that in later webinars in this series. One thing that's also on people's minds is security. So when I talked through the librarian having access to your customer data, question that we often get asked is how do we know that people are only accessing or getting access to the information that we need? So Sales Copilot is well versed in being able to manage access or permissions. So two different people with two different roles and access rights with the same prompt will, as you can see on the screen, receive different responses from our librarian. So it is becoming increasingly more easy to manage those positions without any kind of specialist expertise. Going quite quickly, so I'm hoping that people are staying with me, but now we're going to work through what the steps are that Sales Copilot will take. And again, as Pete referenced, we will go through some live examples within Outlook and Teams, so all of this will start to make sense. Just wanted to give everyone a baseline understanding of what's happening behind the scenes. But we are going to now prompt Sales Copilot by asking it to write a proposal based on our last meeting with Relay Cloud. So Sales Copilot, or our librarian, is going to crawl across the information within our tenant or our environment. It is going to connect to information with the CRM system, last time we met, look at transcripts, etc. from Teams. And these are a breakdown of the 4 key kind of activities or tasks that our librarian or that Copilot can use to help us with. So proposal generation is what we are going to focus on. And you can see here the 4 key steps that Copilot will take. So we are going to find the previous meeting between us and our Relay Cloud contact. It's going to then walk through or assess the transcript for agreed upon proposal details. it's going to match the contact and opportunity details within CRM, and then it's going to assemble that using natural language that it has learnt from what we defined as the large language model. Getting pings from Alvin, so I want to make sure that everyone can still hear me. Okay. Sorry, can everyone still see this screen okay? Yep, I'm getting thumbs up. Okay, good. Thank you though for checking, Alvin. That's very good. It would be bad if I was talking to myself, which I tend to do at times. So this is kind of the final step, which, I mean, in this visual, we're just demonstrating that the large language model is, firstly generating the proposal response, and then scanning that response using the knowledge that it has from this large language model, the copious amount of training that the model has done, to make sure that there is nothing inaccurate within there. And you're also given references. So each of the assertions that are made, take your mind back to when we were studying at uni, you've got a little reference point that you can hover over and see where the large language model or where our librarian has taken that response from. So you can go and click it, drill down and find where that information has been generated from, which is again super helpful. This last component of the visual just demonstrates that the librarian, running with this analogy for a fairly long time, only has access to your data as it pertains to the query that it's being asked. So it will not learn and continue to learn from that data. So just imagine that your librarian, although she's incredibly smart and has the ability to recall data extremely quickly, she has short-term memory loss and will not learn from the information within your environment. And here is a very quick demonstration of how Sales Copilot in a Dynamics 365, so the CRM, would work and function. In natural language, how far am I from my goal? What opportunities are we closing next month? Can I get some account information for a specific account? Again, this is not tailored to financial planning, but we'll get into an example of that. And as you can see, Sales Copilot on the right-hand side and CRM, that I don't imagine looks too similar to Xplan in its current form, but that's the Dynamics interface and how you can track and manage opportunities, accounts, etc. within Dynamics. I've done lots and lots of speaking very quickly, but I just want to pause for breath. Pete, anything for you to add in that before I get into the outlook?
Yeah, I think the only thing from me, it just highlights one of the challenges. I think it's been a question already. We've seen a lot of advice businesses. Data is often held in many locations in an advice business. So we see a lot of cases of businesses having a bit of OneDrive, bit of Dropbox, bit of desktop, and so James, the only way this stuff really works, as I understand it, is that by having all your data in one central point, like a SharePoint, from that perspective.
Azure.
So
yep.
Yeah.
Dataverse, correct. Yeah. And Costa, with your technical background, you can probably cover on some of that when we pass over to you very shortly. So as I said, I think the only two kind of applications I really want to spend time in today is Outlook and Teams, to really demonstrate that, hey, there are some live out-of-the-box features that you can actually switch on with Sales Copilot right now if you have the right licensing. And so the first we're going to do is within Outlook. The fantastic thing about this, and it addresses one of your other points, Pete, around investment into technology also needs to consider training. The best thing about this is it is within an interface that we are incredibly familiar with, and it is familiar. So the click-through process, as you'll see, is not something that requires an incredible amount of significant training. So one of the benefits that we're going to see here is summarizing of an email chain. We'll look at generating an email response and updating CRM records directly within Outlook. So here's our click through. We've received an email from a referral partner for a prospect, Mr. Daniel Lawson, and we are opening Sales Copilot within the context of Outlook. So we're not switching screens to a different solution or screen. Sales Copilot is essentially a plug-on type interface that gives us access to a wide variety of activities, as you can see. I'm just going to pause here. I feel like I'm in the bunker at the moment, doing a bit of pausing and playing, so let me know if I'm going too fast. But the first thing that you're going to see here is a summary of the entire email chain rather than just the email, which is okay for ingestion if you've got 20, 30 different emails back and forth. Not sure how much that happens, but also in being able to document and file note that interaction and the key points from that interaction, I think is really beneficial. And so you can copy that using one of the little icons down the bottom. But now we're going to focus on generating an email response. And I imagine in the services industry, like financial planning, some people may shudder at the thought of this. Relationships are your secret sauce and your differentiator, but this is just a starting point. So this is going to, as we said and showed in the prior video, this is going to crawl across your CRM data, your activity data within M365, and just give you a base to work off. So there's the references that I was talking through. As you hover over that one, it's showing that it's responding to a particular query using information that it's grabbed from Outlook. We haven't connected this demo environment to, copious amounts of proposals, etc. in the background. But if there was a Word document that it had tagged against Daniel as an example, it would suggest, hey, would you like to include this information? You're also able to adjust the draft without necessarily having to go in and type. So you can adjust the tone, which is great, and you can suggest a meeting time. So understand that diary management is a bit of a bugbear for lots of people on this call. That Copilot will crawl across your calendar and suggest a meeting based on, so Daniel said, I'm available on this week. So we're looking at something this week and something that suits our diary. So again, just taking the heavy lifting out of the first draft, you can then send directly from Sales Copilot, but imagining most people on this call would want to copy that across and make edits before they send. So again, it's simple stuff, right? But if you think about on scale, how many emails we're sending per day, per week, per year, being able to just accelerate some of that stuff is really beneficial. Now, this next part is only available for people that are currently using Dynamics 365 and Salesforce presently. But Costa is going to talk through the roadmap and where other CRMs may or may not fit on that roadmap. But you are able to create and update records within CRM directly within Outlook, which is going to be music to a lot of financial planners' ears, I imagine, because you won't have to switch screens and operate within a CRM, particularly if you're moving to a new CRM and Xplan is all that you've ever known. So that's super helpful. You can see here that opportunities are being linked and suggested. So sorry, apologies for doing the bunker here, but we're also having opportunities that are being suggested, which we can tag this email to. In this instance, we probably wouldn't have an opportunity because it's a new prospect, but it's tagging a potential opportunity, which we can surface and see. We can copy information from the opportunity summary to respond, and essentially just making our life easier. So it's a digital librarian coming to our aid and making life easier in the first instance. Now, the final thing that I want to demonstrate was the ability to fast-track collaboration within teams. So we call this setting up a deal room, but essentially, and this may be of interest as well to lots of people on this call, within Outlook, you are now able to create or add this thread to an existing team channel or create a new channel. And that will come with its own folder structure, which you can configure so that it's automated in the back end. So essentially, I have a new prospect coming in. I would like to create a new account in my CRM, but I'd also like to set up a team structure. So think of it SharePoint, but the evolved version. And I'm going to have a predefined folder list that's going to be mapped to that record and account. So that's what's happening in this example here. We're switching across to teams. When we click on files, we can see the folder structure that has been established and again, configurable. And we also have a OneNote where we can, take notes, copy across summaries from Sales Copilot, et cetera, et cetera. So that is all available out of the box, which is, I think, pretty spectacular. The last thing we're seeing here is just connecting this whole email chain to a record within Dynamics. I'm going okay for time. Pete, Costa, anything to add before I just round out with Teams, some of the Teams functionality?
Probably just worth clarifying, James, that some of that CRM integration really only works if you're using the Dynamics CRM. Yep. Is that right? Yep.
Yes, correct. So I'll just.
Is it possible for it to integrate with other CRMs potentially in the future?
That is going to be a question that I'm going to very gratefully hand over to Costa.
So at the moment it works with Dynamics and Salesforce, specifically about the Sales Copilot, but I'm going to talk later about some use cases of what our customers doing in terms of incorporating Copilot-like functionality within their advice process, and that allows them to do that regardless of what their CRM is.
Cool.
Yep. So just to label the point and just be super clear, components of that Copilot experience that did not involve Dynamics are still available now, regardless of the CRM that you're using. Yep. But when we're talking about creating new contacts accounts, etc., and logging things within CRM, that's currently live for Salesforce and Dynamics with, I imagine, a view on the roadmap somewhere to start including other vendors. But I'm putting words in your mouth, Costa. I'm overselling that probably. Okay, last one on Teams. So again, this is where the majority of us spend a hell of a lot of time. So I think, buyer beware. Pete, what you were saying and talking about earlier, I can't remember the number that you put, but it was a pretty extortionate number from memory per month per user. This is actually available now. Again, Costa, I'll leave you to talk to the licensing cost at one point, but you get a super rich interface that you can use to transcribe rather digital meetings. I'm hearing trends that we're shifting more digital from face-to-face meetings, so this helps. But what you can see from this interface is, and this is available, all of 2 minutes after the session. So you wait 2 minutes after you close the call, this transcript is ready for you. Sales Copilot is going to break down and segment the key summary or highlights from the conversation. So as you can see here, there's bookmarks, and I can use that to toggle through various parts of the call. So this is a call that Roshana and I did over an 8-minute period, but you can imagine over a 45-minute session, you want to just skip to a certain specific session. You don't have to listen through the whole thing. So you're able to scan from the left-hand side, which is the key summary points, and also the right-hand side, which has the live transcript, the actual transcript, and you have the ability to create a task. Now, this point, again, is available for Dynamics and Salesforce users, but you can see the use case in something that I imagine we could replicate within other CRMs. Not too much hard work. I'll leave the questions for someone to answer while I'm talking this through. But very quickly, creating tasks directly within Teams. That task is going to be pushed within the CRM that we're using, in this case, Dynamics 365. We create a task. We're back in the Teams interface. We can open that task directly within Teams, and it pushes us to the exact record within CRM. So we don't have to go through Open Dynamics, search for that task. And we can obviously mark complete if we're using Dynamics. So conscious that not many have invested in the Dynamics yet. So let's stay within Teams. Another cool feature and benefit is sentiment analysis. So the aqua color down the bottom is referencing positive interactions or positive tones that it is perceiving throughout the call. So you can think through even for self-coaching for smaller practices, this is super beneficial to go back and, okay, I didn't realize that was potentially a negative tone. Let's go back and listen to that. But for larger licensees, I know some of them were registered for this call, this has fantastic QA and coaching benefits, I would imagine. And so the ability to skip through, and if I had my sound on, you'd be able to hear Roshana and I talking this through. But to be able to skip through using that kind of toggle at the bottom is also very cool. Lastly, there is the mentions tab. So our librarian is also able to bundle up kind of key buzzwords that are spoken about, references to specific people, times that are talked, or questions that are asked by the seller or by the person on the other side of the phone. And you can, again, use that to skip through the call. And some cool metadata there that basically talks through the longest monologue. So yeah, that's kind of quite handy in a B2B sense at times. The only last thing to call out before I hand over to you, Costa, to bring us home is just that there is a search function that I've just realised we haven't demonstrated. So with my little laser pointer, if I can find it quickly. So this search function here will allow you to, if you still after all of those bookmarks can't find the right space where that you're looking for, you can go back and type in. I remember we spoke about X insurance, and you can type that in there. So that is all that I had to show for today. Again, we will be looking to demonstrate as much as possible in future series, but hopefully that was a benefit to everyone on the call.
I'll just jump into that question, James. Mike Miller just asked if that transcription will be turned into a compliant file note. We're probably not the right people to answer the compliant component. We have experts that talk about compliance, but the use case is definitely relevant. So those transcriptions will inevitably be able to put into, frankly, Microsoft Word will have a Copilot embedded in it, and the most likely scenario we feel is that you will be training that Copilot on how your file notes are to be laid out and constructed. We are aware of a lot of startups that are offering or sort of promoting the ability to do these things. We're advising our clients to sort of look at those things, but tread with caution, because our sense is that you will effectively be able to train your own Copilot to do those things, and a file noting use case is a really simple thing for a Copilot to do. So that's a great question, and yes, we would see Teams as a foundation for that.
Yeah. Sorry, just to clarify my answer on that one. So the customer that I'm working on right now, so they are managing their overall advice process in Dynamics customer service, and they're doing the outbound calling directly by using the Teams as well. So they get the transcript from Teams that is being recorded into Dynamics. So now they're doing a form of to actually transform that into a format that is required. But this whole process does not involve Copilot at all. So the process of just transcribing, doing sentiment analysis, that is just using the rest of the AI services. That's not actual Copilot.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Pete, for clarifying, and thank you, Costa. Over to you.
Thank you, James and Pete for the introduction. So, just a bit more about what I actually cover in my role at Microsoft. So it's like I look after the set of FSI customers, or financial services customers, across Australia and New Zealand, and that spans from banks all the way to insurance companies, as well as a few asset managers and wealth management companies. And the discussions that I'm having with this set of clients, they span everything from starting around the core financial or accounting functionalities, all the way to how can we help them to better serve their customers and improve the overall personalized customer experience. So now, when I was prepping for this session, it was quite tough to pick up a content that we want to cover, because the time is quite limited and there is so much to cover when we talk about AI and what we as a company are doing around AI. And I like this slide here, is probably because the title of it has probably the most overused statement in the last few months. Like, AI is transforming everything, is reinventing everything. It will mess up all the industries. But regardless whether we agree with that or not, it's like it's a fact that we can't deny the transformational opportunities that AI is actually bringing. And like, if we look into the actual use cases that can be supported and covered by AI, the number of use cases is limited. But I would like to be a bit more pragmatic and focus on those stuff that we can actually do today. And they mainly focus on what can we do to increase productivity, as well as optimize processes. And this area by itself is also ripe with opportunities. Like, starting from how do you handle the data capturing process, and then what do you do with the data that is being captured from your continuous integrations with your interactions with your clients, whether that's through email, through calls, or through any other digital channel. After the data is being captured, what do you do with it? How do you use it to enable some self-service for your clients, whether this is part of the onboarding process or as well, or towards answering some simple Q&A questions. But also, how do you empower the advisors within your team to help them to provide more personalized advice to their clients by processing the vast amounts of data that they actually have with the organization. So, but the challenge with all these discussions is that ever since we started seeing the magic that ChatGPT can do with just giving simple prompts, as Pete and James mentioned, there are a lot of these AI infused solutions that they have been popping around the market. But the challenge with them is, one is that they're not part of an overall integrated platform, but also quite a few of them are actually not considering key factors like data security properly. And I think that is the area where we can actually help as Microsoft and Microsoft Cloud. As Microsoft, we are the only cloud provider that has the capability, products, and services across all the solution areas. So starting from the productivity apps like Teams, Office, So those are tabs that you're using on daily basis, all the way to the business applications, which is our CRM and ERP portfolio, as well as the data and AI solutions. And of course, all this is built on that one on our own technology stack, and it's hosted on a best-of-class security cloud and secure cloud infrastructure. So earlier in the chat, Pete mentioned a few times that the data is the key part when we talk about getting you on your AI journey. And absolutely, so AI is the fuel that will power the AI technology, and you need to trust what your technology partner is actually doing with that data. And this is one of the most common questions that we are getting when we initiate discussions with our clients about what are we going to do with your data once you start pushing it as prompts to our copilots and the OpenAI service, and are we going to use that for training or not? So the guarantee that we provide is that unless you are developing your own custom model and you then use your own proprietary data to train that, we will never use your data to train any of the any of the shared OpenAI model. So that way, there is no risk that the sensitive data that you get for your clients, as well as the proprietary data that you might have internally, will ever reach any of your competitors. And now, in terms of what can AI do for you, like the mission of Microsoft is to empower everyone to achieve more, and what we are doing in the space of AI and the developments in this area are just emphasizing and reinforcing that message. So today we saw a few examples around what we can do for every employee within the organization, but also we have similar types of copilots and AI tools embedded into the tools that are meant for specific service lines. So starting from, let's say, the advisory team, the customer support team, finance team, and so on, but also for the technical roles within the organization that can help them to both faster develop apps, let's say, or to better manage the security of the existing infrastructure that you have. And like this is the area that I wanted to spend most time on. Is just I wanted to talk about a few examples of what discussions I'm having with other customers right now in the context of this AI all these AI developments. And if there is one thing that's certain across across this space is that at the moment nobody knows with a certain what they're doing. Everybody just experimenting and trying to find what would be the best way to incorporate something within their processes. But generally, there are 4 categories of use cases that we are mainly working on, and they depend on the types of Microsoft products that the customers are using, and if they're using any at all. Like the example that I mentioned earlier about the wealth management customer that is trying to do something with by recording the calls that they're having with their clients, and then trying to save the data internally. That falls into the first use case, which is how they are helping to enhance the customer the contact center services. After the data is being saved into the into the system, they're also building those custom models that are later helping the agents to answer the questions better, but also providing them some insights along the way. I also have another client in the insurance industry that they have taken the management of their call center to next level when they do a full-fledged sentiment analysis, real-time sentiment analysis of the calls that their agents are having with their clients. So that way the managers can react timely if, for example, some discussion is not going in the right direction. But at the same time, this is also helping the agents by doing a real-time transcription analysis or a discussion and providing articles from the knowledge base that can help them to drive the discussion with the person there on the call much better. in the context of wealth management, the search and know your product, as well as empowering your advisor. I have another customer that they have taken the massive set of proprietary analyst reports that they have internally, and now they're building that again custom open AI service on top of it. That with intention to provide a tool that will enable the advisors to quickly search through the data and information they have created in the past, and to get that into a more synthesized format, and that way just save them some time so that they can get the data faster and as well as provide that personalized advice and service towards their clients. There are customers that are doing a lot of work around, let's say, the onboarding process, how that can be automated both with the help of the internal copilots as well as the Power Wheel virtual agents. And on the last area, which is to accelerate the code modernization, there are I think almost every IT team these days is using the GitHub Copilot, which by quite a lot of metrics is improving the development time by, in some cases, by up to 60%. And at the end, I included just one link here, which actually popped up last night, that covers a research about what is the business value and the benefits of AI. So there are some quantifiable metrics there, and a lot more details about the case studies that are already published about some customers that have already done our work, and it's up and running, and it will give you a good I think understanding of where we are, what other customers are doing, and also what is of course the business value out of that.
Thank you very much, Costa. So the analytical minds amongst us, which I'm assuming is a high proportion for the number of attendees today, we will post the link to that case study so you can get into the nuts and bolts of ROI and all the metrics that are included in that report. So thank you for that, and really good to hear about some of the other live examples that you're seeing with your customers. I'm assuming, Costa, that there are some case studies that are available as well if people are kind of navigating and starting to spend a little bit more time on the Microsoft Internet system.
Yeah. So the link I provided there, it has both case studies as well as the financial information about what we have seen in terms of the improvements that other customers have achieved.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Costa. I am going to buy a beer for Mike Miller when I meet him next for the question that he has asked, which I see that we've already answered. But thank you, Mike, for asking that question. Does anyone else have any questions? If you do, now is the time to do so. We have received one from the looks of things from a phantom submission. How can we improve our current technologies and start preparing to adopt AI in them? Probably well answered by one of the items on our screen. Pete, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your health check. But yeah, maybe I can hand this question over to you to have first crack.
Sure. So, look, put simply, that our understanding thus far is that AI will work really well providing you've got the data in an easy to access, clean format. As I alluded to before, we still find a lot of businesses that have data located in many different locations. And so we are continually surprised by how underdeveloped people are from utilizing SharePoint, which is the Microsoft file management system, basically, which is what we would always suggest you be your master file management system for every financial planning business, given that we're such a document heavy industry. So the AI will work so much better for you in the future by having that data correctly managed within SharePoint. Your managed services provider can help you set up your SharePoint instance. And then what we do a lot of work with our clients is on finding a file management system which is going to work best for your practice, and most importantly, getting your staff, and that includes you as the business owner, to follow that file management system. That's often the hardest bit, is just we find staff keeping things on their desktops and Dropbox and all sorts of stuff like that. So file management discipline is probably the number one thing we would fix right now in anticipation of future AI benefits. thanks for the plug for the health check, James. That's a very industry specific technology health check, which we get our clients to do, and prospective clients. It's completely free online, takes you through all the core components of a technology stack that a advice business would face, and ask you a lot of questions around policies and procedures and how you manage it ongoing, and gives you a report effectively which tells you, here's your gaps, here's your low-hanging fruit, and what we would tackle first. As I said, doesn't cost you anything and might steer you in the right direction, and maybe avoid the temptation to just throw another bit of software at the problem. Yeah.
Fantastic. That sounds really cool, Pete. Thank you very much for that. And nice to know that it is free of charge. You don't get that every day. Now, have we received any other questions, Alvin? I'm looking to you and the marketing team. No, that looks like summaries. So if I can be as bold as to ask as many people as possible who join this call and who would like to join us on the next one, we'd be really interested in hearing feedback about this event. So this is the first of many. This is only going to continue to evolve and shift, and it's only going to do so in the right way if we get the right feedback. So please let us know how we've done, what topics you'd like us to cover next time. And if there are no other questions, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day and out of your weeks to join us. Thank you again to Pete and Costa for all of your time, Barhead marketing team for putting this event together, and hopefully we'll see you next time.